Hello everyone. I had every intention of doing the watercolor project video today, but I decided to save it until tomorrow because I've got some appointments today and stuff, and I just didn't really have that long of a stretch of time. So I am going to do something else for our draw video this week, and it's going to be a mixed media project. In the truest sense. And so I don't know how many of you have my my book Watercolors for Everyone, but I have a lesson there. Gosh, it's called Persistence, I think, or something like that. We've done it here before too. So but what I did is I kind of made a variation on that, and we're gonna just take it in all sorts of directions today. And I'm going to talk about our supplies in a minute. And this little project is meant for you to try and then to sort of riff on it and take it in any direction that your heart tells you to. And it's a beautiful, so this is its most simple manifestation. And I don't know if you can see, I don't know if the light is shining in here enough that you can see the sparkles in here, but this would be at its most simple, right? But we're gonna take it a little bit in a different direction this morning. So it's really fun, and it's a great way to get to know a palette or to use a whole bunch of colors, to explore like different color combinations and how they mix and mingle together. So the first thing I want to talk about is your paints. And for the one that you just saw, this one here, you'll notice like down here, it turns kind of a soft gray. It's very transparent, and these colors are vibrant even though they're heavily mixed, okay? And that's because I used my split primary palette that I talked about the other day, my split primary with my other paints, okay? These are all mass-produced name brand paints. They're very transparent with a couple exceptions, and they're great for mixing like that. And so it's going to give you a more vibrant, sort of colorful effect, right? But you can also take it in any direction you feel like. For instance, I have my treasured set from Egalo, and these are all natural pigment paints, and they're not so bright, right? They're very subtle and soft, but the way we're going to mix the colors, you would get some really interesting things happening, okay? You can use sparkle paints. You can pick 3 colors that you want to sort of play with and see how they work, and see what happens, right? I thought, because I'm really into these right now, they're new to me, and they're very different from other things that I have. And so I thought I would use these for our sample. It was between this, I also put a holographic glitter in there. So I have 7 of them, and yeah, I'm just going to use them. And then I also pulled out my little set of metallics. I've got brass from Earth Mineral Arts and brass and copper from Christina MCM Arts by MCM. And then I have this aluminum pigment that's actually very toxic. So if you have this, make sure that you don't, it's toxic. So this one, if I want to use some sparkles, which I usually do, but I like this because they're all real, right? They're not mica paints, they're real. So we're gonna try that, and let's see here. That's it for paint. So I was also thinking maybe of this little set from Julia Callan, which I really love, but I used this over and over again for like weeks, and now I've got these new paints, and I really want to play with them. So that's paint. Anything goes, whatever your heart desires, and that's what's going to make it unique to you, okay? And you can change this over and over and over again. Let me check my tea. I gotta show you this tea. This is one of my favorite teas. It's from Baloch in Brooklyn, and it's the most delicious green tea with rose petals. It's so good, so good. I like to let it get nice and strong. So the rest of our tools, we're going to draw first. So I have a mechanical pencil, any kind of pencil will do. I also have a nib, all right, with some ink. This is Robert Oster Motor Oil, which is what I chose for this. This nib has seen better days. Well, it'll be okay. Robert Oster Motor Oil, any kind of ink will do, but my suggestion is, at least one time, try it with an ink that's not waterproof. So you could use pens, you know, like Pigma Micron pens and brush pens and things like that, and you'll get a wonderful result, especially if you work quickly with your paint and you can get things to run a little bit. But I'm going to use something that I know dissolves in water, right, that I know is not waterproof. And so motor oil is a really good one because it sort of shifts into all different colors. It has sort of a natural color as its base, so sort of a brownish color. So that's what I chose. Anything will do. So even if you have a Crayola marker or any kind of brush pen that's water soluble, truly anything goes. So markers, whatever. Watercolor pencils would also work really well for this, okay? And then I have some other things to use with my ink. So this is just a fern seed head, all right, that I keep in my paint jar. I like it because it's really flexible. It's got all these little balls, so it gives me really unusual marks when I use it. I have a little stick from a witch hazel plant that I stick into ink, and it's also very soft and pointy, and it's got this little part here that sometimes makes itself known. So we've talked about sticks before. They're wonderful. And then I have this beautiful oak twig that's just magnificent to paint with or to draw with, okay? I also have a gold gel pen that we might use at the end for some things. This is very fine point. Any gel pen is fine, silver, gold, copper, doesn't matter. You could also use metallic paint with a really fine brush, okay? So just some things to think about. I have a small piece of paper and I just taped it down to a board, all right, with some washi tape. And that's just so it lies flat because we're gonna do some, what do you call it? We're gonna be lifting it to let the paint flow. And so I wanna make sure that it lies flat, doesn't curl up, and that I can tilt my board when I need to, all right? So that's that. I'm going to pour my tea. So again, what I wanna say is this is just, I'm gonna walk you through some ways to approach this, okay? And you are free to take that and go in any direction that you choose. So yummy. So I'm gonna start with ink. And I think I'm gonna try my fern head. Oh, you know what I need? I need a piece of tissue, hold on. So before we start, I want to say the reason why I introduce things like that into my work is because it pushes my boundaries and it takes away control in a way, all right? And that opens me up to beautiful possibilities all the time, all right? So that's why I use things like this. Be creative with that. You could use a willow leaf. You could use a tiny bit of pine needles, like a little tip of pine needles from a branch. Anything, all right? Anything goes. All right. As long as you can dip it into ink, you're good. And if it's something too big to put in ink like this, pour it into a little dish and do it that way. I'm just dipping it into the ink. All right. And I have some tissue nearby. So the first thing I want to do, the first thing I want to do is use a pencil. And I want to kind of give myself a space here where here is where my plant ends up, right? That's what I want to do. All right, so I've got ink on the tip here, and I am going to start almost at the top, and I'm going to draw down to meet that. Okay, and then I'm going to draw outward. I'm going to put some here, 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 here. So you see how it's very organic, right? I can rinse off my fern head. All right, and then maybe then I'll try to use a dip pen. And I'm going to connect things a little bit. So things connect. So I'm taking these little lines that I've drawn and make them into more like branches. So they're a little bit thicker where they connect. See that? And I might draw a little bit along there. And then I always blot, you know, just a little bit, just to give myself some variation in tone. And I might want to pull through some markings like that, okay? And then I want to draw leaves. So, you know, I could stick with my pen, or I think what I'll do, I think I'm going to use my witch hazel because it's so soft and fine that it'll keep me loose. All right, so I'm going to use one to draw a leaf off the top. Maybe I'll put one right here. One here. Do you see how it just keeps me from being perfect? And I think in the end, you'll appreciate that. Go right over some if I need to. Here, one's coming off of there. You can always choose what you want to be in front and what you want to be in back. See that? So you have the choice. You can use a pen. You know, or a marker or something, and be very precise and clean about it. Or you can use something that sort of makes sure that it's not perfect. And I think you'll see that both are lovely in their own way. It just depends on you, what you like. Okay, I always rinse off the tip of my branch, whatever I'm using. All right, so that's good for the ink. All right, I'm gonna put my branches back and my pen. I just make sure I clean the ink off, because if it dries on it, depending on the ink, if it has some shellac in it or something, it can ruin your nib or your branch. All right. So that's done, and I want to put my ink away so I don't accidentally spill it. So we don't have to wait for the ink to dry, because we really want things to flow, all right, and to mix and mingle together. So I'm going to use a small paintbrush. I'm just going to use a mop. If I can find it. There she is. And I'm going to use the top of my palette as a mixing area, so I can hold my paints in my hand and just mix that way. So I'm going to remove what I had in here before. All right, doesn't have to be perfectly clean. And I'm just going to begin, and I think I'm going to begin with yellow. And so I get some yellow on my brush. Put it into the tray, because we want all colors to be here in the end, all right? And I begin at the top and I paint in my leaf. And then I move to the next color, all right? I just mix it right into the yellow and I start working my way down these leaves. And I start in the middle and just let it touch to the side because that ink is going to blend, all right? Put a little bit more of that color. And I just move around. Now remember that these colors, all right, now I'm gonna go to the next color and add that in. Remember that these colors are gonna be more muted than if you used clear, clean, like artificial pigments, right? These are special mixes and natural pigments, and they're gonna react a little bit differently. If I have too much, I can just stick my brush in there and lift it. But I always wanna dip in twice, okay? And then I move to the next color. Add that in. Okay, dip into that twice. And then I just keep moving. And I'm not thinking about what order the paints are in. I just decided a place to start. And that's where I started. And the magic of this method is that every color will have a little bit of every other color in it, okay, except up here with the yellow where we started. However, and I can just paint, see, I can decide what's on top, right? And just put it in there. And I think this one I'll leave behind. That one I'll put on top. Okay, and I'll move to the next one. So every time you do this and you switch up your colors, you're going to end up with very different results. And every time you switch up your materials and your tools that you use and your paper, and it's just it's a very interesting way do a tiny little project that won't take you much time. If you need a birthday card for someone, you know what I mean? Just little things. I'm loving these muted tones. Now, if you only have a certain amount of colors, let's say you used 3 colors, what do? You just head back to the beginning, right? And you just keep adding. And sometimes if it starts to get too dark or gray, I just move a little bit off to the side and add in quite a bit of the new color. See what I'm doing? I'm kind of pulling it off to the side there. Okay, back to this one. So these are really going to be natural looking and muted, as opposed to, which I call shibui, which is a Japanese aesthetic for subtle, everyday, natural, simple beauty, unobtrusive. do not worry if you go out of the lines a little bit, right? I mean, I shouldn't even have to say that. You know that by now, but. I'm gonna do one more of those because I really like that color. Just keep moving around. Do one more. So the way I'm suggesting that you go about this is just a suggestion, correct? You can take it in any direction you want. Oh, I have a hair on my brush. There's enough in there, I think. And here I am, back to the beginning again, so I might move that aside a little bit. I definitely recommend trying it with just 3 colors because the variety you get is really astounding to do. I've done that many times. Super fun, imaginative. 3 colors. Wow, you can get so much with 3 colors. All right, so now I've come to the end of my leaves, so I'm gonna take whatever is left on my palette, all right, and I'm gonna mix it all together. And that is gonna go down the center as the branch. And you should have quite a bit of ink in there too. It's gonna pick up the ink. Okay, and I want you to stop at the bottom, all right? Now, before we move on, if you have metallic paint, now is the time to wake them up, which means I'm gonna use the brass. So I'm just putting some water in there so it softens it. These real metallics, they get hard, and so you've got to kind of wake them up. These wake up pretty easily, but if you're using like the Earth Mineral Arts brass, it needs quite a bit of time, all right, to wake up. So I just make sure that I do that. Now for this part, what we want to do is we want to start with just clear water and come up and touch what you've just done and let it sort of soften. Take it all the way out to the edges. Okay, and then really bring that water down. Hopefully you can see this, yeah. All right, so I'm bringing it all the way down to the bottom, all right? Then I'm gonna go in the same order I went before. So here's a little bit of that yellow that I started with and just drop it in. And here's a little bit of that volcanic tuff. Put it next to the yellow. Just make sure, you want to make sure that this is nice and wet so it has a place to go. Okay, it's all going to pool down here and it might even fall off, and that's fine. Here's that nice raspberry colors. Put that in there, or the rose ash, and then drop some of that one in. And you're just dabbing it, right? And don't worry if it doesn't, if you have 3 colors, then go through them twice. Okay, so I've got all these colors that I've done, and then I'm just gonna take some water and drop it. All right, so it starts to run down a little bit. Okay, and I can just take a brush and just soak up whatever comes down here. See that? I can just let it run down and let it soak up. Then I'm gonna pick up my metallic and I'm gonna go right here at the where I just touch it on until it starts to flow down. All right, and you might even need to put just a touch more water in there. You just want it to flow. All right, every time you do this, it's going to react a little bit differently, and you'll get used to it, and you'll find ways to make it flow better for yourself, depending on the paints and the paper you're using and the amount of water you've used. All of those things matter. But once it flows down and you wipe up all the excess on the bottom, just lay it flat to dry. It's going to dry completely. So you notice this one, how it spread totally differently, right? It's going to be different every time. And that's what's so lovely about it. So I'm going to let this be, I'm going to let it dry, and then we're going to come back and we're going to use our gel pen to put a little bit of a special touch. Okay, so this is dry up here, all right? And this is where you can get creative with either pencil or pen. I chose to use a metallic gel pen. That's just what seemed like what I wanted to do, but you could do so many things with this part. You could use white gel pens. You could get really decorative, all right? I'm gonna keep it fairly simple because I kind of like it, but I'm gonna have sort of a loose grip on my pen, right? And what I wanna do is I wanna surround each leaf with just sort of organic, another organic leaf shape, all right? And so I just kind of surround them. Sometimes I might go around it more than once, just however I feel. Try to stick to the basic shape, but it doesn't have to be exact, okay? And I can also bring some markings onto the actual branch. So this is where, remember, we had to decide when things overlapped one another. We can really emphasize that now. Now, you might not be able to see this on camera. I'm pretty sure metallics are really tricky over cameras, but I can see it and it's really pretty. I wish you could see it in the sunlight. It just sort of gives it this, I don't know, it gives it a little bit of an edge and a beautiful glimmer. So you could also think of other ways, you know, and you could do this much bigger and you could get in and decorate the leaves like randomly, you know, like polka dots or little tick marks, you know, whatever you wanted to do. So once that's done, and sometimes I will go through and emphasize the branch a little bit in places, depending on, just for fun. All right, and then kind of what I like to do is give a little bit of weight to it every now and then. So for instance, where leaves cross each other or where they connect to a branch, I might add a little bit of weight. Where a branch meets the main stem, I might add a little bit of weight there with my pencil. If a leaf goes over another leaf, I might add a little weight. just every now and then, a little bit of darkness just sets things off well. There. Okay, I love this. I absolutely love it. So let's take the tape off. So if you had a greeting card, you could just put tape all around the edges. And there you go. So beautiful. So beautiful. Wish you could see it in the sunlight. I don't know if you can see it sparkle. So pretty. All right. Just something fun, you guys. I want you to try it and take it and make it your own. Just something fun. Even try different leaf shapes. Whatever comes to you, just do it. All right. It's just something, I think right now we need some of these little projects. So many of you tell me that you just haven't had time, or when you sit down, you just feel overwhelmed and you haven't had time for big projects. And I mean, many of you told me that this week, that you just haven't had time for the bigger projects. Well, here's something that you can find time for. If you just, once you know how to do it now, if you just ran through the process, it'd probably take you 10, 15 minutes tops. And what a lovely thing. All right, and I know that with your creativity and just sort of letting it evolve for you, you'll make all different kinds of beautiful examples of this that you can give away to other people. You know, it's funny, even, you know, sometimes on the way home from my daughter's on Thursdays, I drive through Starbucks. It's like my treat. And I love the cold brew coffee with the nitro foam. I love those. And so I'll do that. And sometimes I'll just have something like this in the car and I'll just give it to the guy or the gal at the drive-through window. I mean, I know COVID and everything, but it's just paper. They can, you know, they can set it down somewhere and yeah, just set it on the wall. I mean, whatever. It little things like that. You know, leave it on a park bench at the park. We need more of that right now. We need a little bit of beauty and joy above and beyond. All right, so just something simple. No excuses, you have time for this, okay? All right, everybody. And I will see you tomorrow with our watercolor project because it's gonna take a little bit more time than I had today. All right, take care. Thank you, bye-bye.